It's like a gas tank in a car. It's the same thing. If their E-tanks are empty, they're not going to go very far. If they're full, they're going to go a long way. And you have to notice that in your players when they come in the door. Sometimes if they're having a bad day, like we all have, their E-tank might be empty. So we need to pump them up. We need to fill that up a little bit. So we perform our best when we're making improvements, we're getting better. Now, what are some of the ways where we can fill an emotional tank when things aren't going well? So I'll give you an example. Guilford basketball, as we all are going to play in rec games and be competitive. Let's say you're coaching a 4th grade girls team. I'm on your team. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, don't worry about that now. I won't give you much offense. I'll give you a little defense, but not much else. But there's 5 seconds left in the game. We're down by 1 point. The ball comes to me. I'm dribbling up the court. We get a rebound. I'm dribbling up, and the clock's counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I have a nice little short shot on the left wing. Ball goes up and goes off the rim. No good. So we lose by 1. As a player, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look over at my coach, and I'm going to see what his or her reaction is. So I want this half of the room, in that scenario, I want you to empty my tank first. Empty my E-tank. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shot is missed. Now, okay, I'm an adult. You can make this an adult. You can attack me as an adult. That's okay. I can take it. But have it be, kind of PG. Don't get vulgar. But how can you empty my tank with the things that you say? 3, 2, 1, missed shot. Go ahead. Empty.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that was easy. That was wide open. You cost us the game.
Terrible shot. My grandmother could have taken a better shot
than
that.
Do it again.
Terrific. That's great. I mean, it's not great. It doesn't make me feel good. But those are great things that I saw. Seeing some reactions of hands to the head and hands go up, and the neck gets tilted a little bit, and so there are gestures that are involved too, in addition to the words. That's very good. Now we're going to have this half of the room. I want you now to fill my tank after this missed shot. So here's the same scenario. Ball comes to me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shot goes up, looks like it's going to go in, trickles around the rim, goes off. Again, we lose by 1, same scenario. Okay, the group on this side now, this half of the room, fill my E-tank, if you could. What would you say?
Way to get open. Way to be aggressive. We believe in you. We'll get the next one. Keep shooting.
Terrific. Great. That's it. We'll get the next one. Don't worry about it. Good job. Way to dribble up the court fast. Excellent. So, again, as a player, I'm going to look over at the bench, see what my coach is going to say, and those are the things as a coach you have to prepare for ahead of time. So when you write up your practice or you go to the game and you write out your lineup, think ahead. What kind of scenarios are going to happen today that are going to be challenging for me? Bad calls by the referee, missed shot at the end of the game. Things aren't going to, we might lose by 20. What am I going to say to my people to get them with a full E-tank? It can be difficult sometimes. But I think what we did there was terrific in terms of, we saw the difference between emptying and filling with our verbs and with our verbiage and with some gestures. Now do the same thing, but don't say anything. Do it with gestures. Do it non-verbally. So we're going to do the same scenario exactly. I get the pass. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Missed shot. This half of the room, again, instead of verbally draining my E-tank, do it with gestures. Go ahead. Missed shot. What can you do? Okay, that's very good. Very good. Wave again, thumbs down. Again, that head tilt was really good. someone turned around, that really hurts. When somebody turns around and ignores you completely, that's really bad. But again, the gestures almost speak as loudly to me as the words do, which is something that, sometimes we take for granted as coaches. Our nonverbals are very powerful statements. Okay. This half of the room, once again, you did a great job with tank filling with verbiage. Now do it non-verbally. Do it with gestures. Same thing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Missed shot. Go ahead. How can you lift me up? Thumbs up, clapping, fist. Yes. Very good. Excellent. Okay. Stand up and do both. That really makes me feel good. That's great. So these kind of things that we think about as coaches, verbal, nonverbal. The one thing I remember as a coach, when I was at Penn State coaching the women's team, as a young coach, I didn't really know how powerful my actions were on the sidelines, because I just didn't know any better. And not only did it affect the players on the court, but it affected players on the bench. For example, when I was coaching, we'd have a scrimmage, and I would coach one team, the other assistant would coach another team, and the two kind of co-head coaches would kind of run the sidelines. Play would be going on, we'd get a bad call, or something would happen that would anger me because I wanted to win. See, we get that ego in the way. I wanted to win. I want to do a good job for my coaches. This bad play is a reflection on me. This is not good. So my reaction would be, and the players actually had told me this, that they felt very uncomfortable with this. Fold my arms, scowl on my face, and I would stomp. Like I would stomp really hard and kind of march down the sidelines. And it was something that the players that were kind of on the court just kind of ran up and down. Like they didn't really see it. They didn't really notice because they're on to the next play. Like the plays happening pretty fast. But the players on the bench, a couple of them that were here, if it was a blue-white scrimmage, we only had a few people here maybe, they were very uncomfortable with that because as they're sitting there and all of a sudden I would turn around and stomp. Now, I didn't step on anybody's feet or break any toes or anything like that, but when I would turn around, that stomp would be right by where they were, and they would look up at me and their eyes would be that big around. I didn't notice that this was a problem until I watched myself on film. And when I watched it on film, I not only would watch, the game and the scrimmage and, whatever else was going on, but I started to watch myself. And it was embarrassing. Like, it was really, really bad it was demonstrative. Fold, scowl, stomp around. I was acting like a first grader. But I didn't realize it until I saw it on film. Saw it on tape. And then the players actually addressed me too, like I said, and now I really felt, oh man, I have to make some changes here. If you ever want to get an idea of how you are as a coach, have somebody film you. Have somebody film you during the course of the game, and you will be shocked at what you see. You'll be shocked that somehow even the little things that you do, whether you turn your head or whatever it is, everybody has their own personal way of coaching. But you'll be amazed at what you see. And what you then have to realize is, as you're watching this, put yourself as a parent watching how you react to play and how you act, how maybe it's your kid that makes a mistake. And if you're over there going like this and being demonstrative, that's not making the parents very happy, especially if it's relative to your kid. Somebody might address you with all that. But that's what we're going to change. We're going to change all that. We're going to make all that better by thinking about reacting in a positive way ahead of time. Now, your little players who miss those shots at the end of games, okay, 5th graders, 8th graders, boys and girls, doesn't make any difference. That last missed shot, again, we're going to come back to that scenario because it's one of those crucial things that, remember, your players have not had a lot of game experience in these situations. You watch the NBA players and college players, they have a whole lifetime of experiences of making shots, missing shots. Your 5th and 6th graders, this might be the first time they've ever played in a competitive situation. And if they miss that shot, that's their whole world. This is their NBA final. This is it for them. So we have to now react in a positive way to show them that, hey, this is okay. This is not the end of the world. In their own minds, they're saying this is the end of the world, but we can change that. We don't have to have it be that way. The one thing I want you to think about when things like this happen, think about Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. If you don't get anything else out of this workshop, think about him. By the way, did anybody see the documentary on Mr. Rogers? We're going a little far afield here, but
I did.
it was absolutely tremendous. Just tremendous. Now, I watched Mr. Rogers basically every day growing up on the public television station, Channel 3, every day at 5:30. I couldn't wait to watch it. Came on right after the Electric Company. Electric Company followed by Mr. Rogers. Awesome. One of the famous quotes that Mr. Rogers used to say, and so at the beginning of the show, he would come in, go down the steps, put his sweater on, and he would say, "Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you be my neighbor today?" Okay, that's one quote. What else did he say? And think about it again, the situation that we just had here relative to what one of his famous quotes. It's a little tough, but so if you think about it, I'm going to give it to you. He would say, let's say to the young person who missed the shot, they would come over, Mr. Rogers standing there, he would say, "You know what? I like you just the way you are." Or if it's your son or daughter, "You know, I love you just the way you are. I don't care that you made or missed that shot. I just love seeing you out there. I love seeing you compete. I love that you're part of this great team and this great organization. And it's okay if you miss a shot. It doesn't matter to me. I love you just the way you are." Those are very, very powerful statements for young people that are not, they're not part of, a lot of, competitive situations. They miss shots. The whole world has ended. And you start saying things like that, and you do. You love me just the way I am, even though I missed that shot and cost my team the game, and this is all okay. And oh, okay. So, you talk about something that can fill their tanks and make them feel better about things. These things are fantastic. And that's what we have to do as coaches and as parents, is we have to be relentlessly positive in our actions, in our words, what we say. And so we want our people to be more optimistic, more coachable. Hey, you know what? Another good phrase. I know you missed that shot at the end of the game, but you're the kind of person that next time you're going to make that shot. That really took a lot of courage. You're the kind of person that has the courage to take that shot at the end of the game. I'm really proud of you for that. And you shot it without hesitation. You put yourself out there and you tried to make a really, really good play for your team. That took a lot of courage. It's great. So again, these are the kind of things that we say as parents and coaches, that it may seem like a little thing, and it may seem like something that is a detail that is kind of brushed off by kids. Believe me, kids are listening. Kids are observing. They also observe things like this. Let's say that shot went in. Let's say that shot went in at the end of the game. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, in. We win by 1. You're the hero. That's awesome. You are the hero. You are the king for the queen for the day. You made the shot. Everybody's giving you hugs. Let's say that is your son or daughter that made that last shot. Or let's say you're the coach too. Since we're all coaches here, let's say you're the coach. You can send your kids or your players mixed messages by going out and giving them a great big hug, and you lift them up and you maybe put them on your shoulders and you carry them off the court. We have to be very careful about how we handle situations like that. We have to handle those situations almost in the same way. Say, you know what? I'm really proud of you for taking that shot. I'm really glad it went in. I think that's great. But did you also notice we got the rebound at the other end of the court by someone who boxed out and someone who looked up ahead and passed you the ball? So you're noticing, you're a noticer of different things that happened that led up to that play, which will make everybody feel good, not just the player who made the shot. It'll make everybody feel great. So now you're not just filling the e-tank of the player who made the shot. That's easy to do. Hey, great shot. Hey, great job. You really did a nice thing there. What about all the rest of the game where people were boxing out, running the floor, doing a good job on offense, lifting each other up, helping each other? Those are the kind of things that are filling tanks not only in the last 5 seconds and at the end of the game when you fill it, but also during the course of the game. So you become a noticer of things, and everybody saw the last shot, yeah, no kidding. But you also have to treat that situation the same. Whether you win, whether you lose, you're going to tell your player, you know what, I like you just the way you are. That took courage. It went in. That's fantastic. You know what we're going to do? We're going to get even better next week. We're going to get even better our next practice. Our next practice is, such and such, and we move on. And you can make both scenarios work to your benefit really well. So when we talk about the thing that you can do as a coach to be more effective, talk about good verbal cues, good nonverbals. When we have positive things that we say, magical things can happen. Players perform better. We've all said that. They improve, they get better. What's the one thing you can do to be more effective? I don't care what you know about basketball. Doesn't make any difference. I don't care if you know 100 out of bounds plays. I don't care if you know 100 offenses. Give me one thing most coaches can do to be more effective.
Be more positive?
Be more positive, correct. What else?
Support their team no matter how they perform.
Exactly. You go back to that scenario, win or lose. We lose by 1, we lose by 20. We're going to still try to get better. We're still going to improve. We're still going to elevate people. An elevator is a great word because as a coach, you can be an elevator, not as the elevator that goes up and down, but an elevator of effort, rewarding good play, being specific about it. So, but we still want our people to be better. So sometimes we have to, I don't want to say criticize, but we want to coach them up a little bit too. So if they make a bad play, we want to tell them, okay, well now next time we want to do this a little better. It's not going to be, we're not going to be rah, the whole game. We also want to be critical in our coaching so we can point out mistakes so we can be better that way. So in terms of criticisms, let's say I have one criticism, what would be a ratio that you think would be over in this other number, positive to criticism? How many positives to one criticism? And if you've been to a PCA event like this before, don't shout it out because you probably know the answer. Anybody who's a first-time coach or has not been here before want to take a guess at what the first number in that ratio should be?
I'm sorry, the ratio is for what?
The ratio is for positive when we as a coach, when we criticize our players, if we criticize them one time, how many positives should we give our players to every one criticism? So it's a number of positives
2
to 1. 2 to 1, okay.
I'm going to say 3.
3? Anybody else?
10.
10. Wow, very good. Okay.
5.
5. So in all the studies that have been done with all the great teams and all the successful programs in athletics, in adult relationships, in the job world, the ratio of 5 to 1 is what PCA calls the magic ratio. 5 positives to 1 criticism. So if we say, hey, great job, that's good hustle, very nice going, which, by the way, before we touch on this 5 to 1, that's another problem I had as a coach when I was younger. just what I had just said, if you were listening a little bit 10 seconds ago. Hey, very good. Hey, nice job. Really, really good. Really good what? Like, what does that mean? That's not really specific. That doesn't really count as one of our positives because you're not specific in your praise. Now, the difference is if I would say, hey, way to ref that loose ball. That's really good. Nice work. Good hustle. Now you're actually specifically and positively, specifically recognizing a good play instead of just the generic, hey, very good. Hey, nice score. I mean, that's all fine, but players aren't really going to embrace that and say, was he talking to me or is he not? But if you're specific and say, hey, Julie, way to get back on defense. That's great. Now that's very specific, okay? So our positives to criticism, the 5-to-1, the magic ratio, is phenomenal in that, you know, you should, as a coach, try to keep track of the individuals. That's hard to do. But you can't criticize one player all the time because those criticisms start to add up. And you don't want to have a ratio, well, now you're up to 3 criticisms, but I haven't given them any positives yet. So you want to try to point out as many positives as you can and make that 5-to-1 ratio to your benefit. I mean, there are coaches like Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson had a great talk where he said, I had a player, Horace Grant. He came here and he played for the Bulls, and he said, I just couldn't get myself to praise him. Like, I could really criticize him, but I couldn't praise him. And so I met with him and I said, look, Horace, you're a good player. I'm trying to help you here. He said, and Phil Jackson is very familiar with this ratio. He said, I'm going to really try to praise you as much as I can. He said, I'm going to try to get to 2-to-1. Then I'm going to try to get to 3-to-1. And then you can, and as Coach Jackson's talking about all this, you can see that he's kind of struggling to get to that 5-to-1 ratio. But that's how you can improve as a coach. And then after a while, Horace Grant became one of their best players because of Coach Jackson. Phil Jackson was able to get that ratio instead of 2-to-1. He was able to get it to 5-to-1. Now his player is better. Now his team is better. And it's just little things like that. Again, you don't have to know anything about basketball. You don't have to know anything about basketball in terms of out-of-bounds plays, offenses, defenses. If you get that ratio up, that can be one of the most effective things you can do. So the answer to the question, increase your plus to minus ratio as a coach. More positives, fewer negatives. Now, the criticisms can be put in what we can call a criticism sandwich. So you have the 2 slices of bread, you have the meat in between. The 2 slices of bread are going to be your positives. And the meat in between is going to be the criticism. So you can say, let's say on that missed shot that I had back in the very beginning. Hey, okay, now, so missed shot. How are we going to put that in the criticism sandwich? So we're going to say, that was really a great job on a good shot there at the end. I think next time you can get a little closer so that shot's a little more in your range. But I really liked how you dribbled up the court fast. So we have the 2 positives with the criticism in between. There you've got your 2-to-1 ratio like that. And remember, nonverbals count too. Nonverbals count as much as the verbiage does. So when you're coaching, thumbs up, fist pump, you smile, you recognize good things, that counts. That counts towards your ratio, which is very important too. So we talk about Phil Jackson. So Jim Thompson's book becomes very influential in his life. And of course he gets the 5-to-1 ratio. I just pointed out Horace Grant because he's in a video that's coming up. Let's see if this is the one right here.
It's still extremely important to couch comments in a positive value because we will, and the interesting thing is we will give, you're working really hard and you're making plays that are really good, but something's not happening right out there. And whatever it is that's not happening right is always the thing that sticks in their mind. things or 4 positive things before you announce the one negative thing. But somehow the negative thing is like an atomic bomb. So we really try and get them to focus on the fact that this is not about, you know, the negativity part of your game. This is about how you grow as a player.
So interestingly enough, did you hear it when you listened to the quote? Did you hear the one thing that he said about the one thing that sticks in the player's mind is like a what?
Atomic bomb.
Atomic bomb. That's exactly right. And these are professional athletes we're talking about. I mean, these are pros that you used to think, well, they should be able to brush this off or flush this out. We're going to talk about that later in terms of getting past mistakes, getting by mistakes. But even professional players, they worry about mistakes and about how they're playing. And you know, I had an interesting talk with a 4th grade rec girls team I coached about 5 years ago, and we were all sitting in a circle. And I'd just been to a PCA talk, a workshop, and so I sat down, did a little experiment with my team. We're all sitting in a circle. They're the cutest kids ever. First day, and I said, okay, now, when we play this year, are mistakes good? When we make a mistake, is that a good thing? And they all looked and said, no. I said, oh. So mistakes are bad? They said, yeah. I said, oh. Well, I'll tell you what. If you make a mistake with me this year, that's going to be okay. We're going to allow you to make mistakes. It's going to be all right. And they all kind of went, oh. It was like the big backpack of books that they carried to school had been lifted off their shoulders. They felt, you know, so much better. I said, we're gonna pump you up. We're gonna make it so that mistakes are okay, and we're gonna notice things like effort, and we're gonna keep track of things, and we're gonna all work together. And mistakes are fine. And it took them really an entire year to get past that, because mistakes are something that are not, you know, in basketball especially, there's a lot going on. And with 4th grade girls, I mean, they travel a lot, and there's bad passes, and they don't know what to do. But it turned out at the end of the season, I told them, I said, look, if you make a mistake, if something happens, don't look over at the bench. I said, you're going to look to each other and try to give each other either a high five or a fist bump or a fist or something like that. And that's going to make it all better, and that's okay. So in our little scenario,
Christian, I'm actually going to stop you there because it's been 30 minutes already.
okay.
And I want to make sure Ruben has the opportunity to give you some feedback too, because he wasn't on with you yesterday. So I just wanted to stop you there if that's all right.
Sure. Yeah. No problem.
Okay. I do want you to see that the slides that you have left. So the tools part
Right.
is really important, and you didn't really get to the tools yet. So I think time management is going to definitely be something that you have to work on.
Okay.
Because that's the basic part of the principles is the tools. The coaches want to know, what can I physically do to help my team get better?
Okay.
So it's been 30 minutes and you didn't get to any of the tools yet. I mean, you did mention criticism sandwich, but I think, you know, that's something that we definitely have to get to sooner. But I'm going to pause there because I gave you a lot of feedback yesterday, and I'm going to let Ruben, give you some of his thoughts. Okay. But thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Yeah, Christian. So, you mentioned, let me start by asking you, you mentioned to me the things you wanted to bring to this demo that you didn't yesterday. What's your evaluation of that?
I think the when I look back, if just in terms of my own evaluation, some of the personal interjection I think was a little out of place. I think it was maybe not the right time for it. Maybe down the road when we talk about some of the other things like the elm tree of mastery and honoring the game, I think those can be saved until later. I think I tried to jam everything into maybe those couple slides without, like, again, getting to, I mean, the buddy system is one of my favorite things. and also the winner's circle at the end where you toss a ball and you talk about, you know, the end of the game or the end of practice or whatever it is. So, so I think in terms of what I was trying to do with throwing out some personal things was to keep advancing the slides also, like keep advancing things and keep it moving that way rather than, I think I was on one slide maybe for like 10 minutes, which is probably way too long. Well, it is way too long. It's not possibly way too long. It is way too long. But to keep that thing, you know, I think I moved it better in terms of the personal aspect of it. But the slides have to also move too, because they don't want to look at the same slide, I don't think, for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes. It just gets old. And again, hey, can we move this along a little bit? I mean, I think it was more interesting than yesterday. Myself, I think I would be more interested as a participant, but I also think that the slides need to keep moving as well.
Yeah. So I definitely thought you brought, you know, some personal experience to this. So I noticed that very early on. And I also noticed you started almost immediately with asking us a question and getting us to respond, you know, which I think was part of what you said earlier too. You wanted to get us talking more. I think you said that.
Right. That was part of the initial strategy.
Yeah.
Sure, right.
Yeah. So I do think I saw some of that. I think you can do more of it. You do want to place. You're right. You know, so some of the personal stories and examples, were they in the exact right place? You know, you'll get a feel for that as you do this more and more often. What's most important is that you did it, and that you did that. Okay. You said I tried to jam too much in. I'm laughing because I absolutely feel that I absolutely feel like you tried to jam too much in. Kelly knows that I use this phrase a lot, and now I hear her using it. Less is more. Less is more. You know. We got 2 hours with them. We're going to try to hit them with a model. We're going to try to hit them with 3 principles. We're going to try to hit them with a bunch of tools. We're going to try to get them to talk. We try to do a lot in a 2-hour workshop if we do indeed have the full 2 hours. So, you know, so less is more, you know. Just a couple of things here. Let's see. Okay, so in terms of trying to jam too much in, so you know, you started talking about mistakes being okay. Do you remember when you did that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to talk about mistakes being okay in this workshop. It's going to be a major point of emphasis. And where does that happen, Christian, in this workshop? Mistakes are okay as part of which principle?
Elm trees is actually the.
It's absolutely part of Elm. It's the M in Elm. So you know. Again, less is more. You know. Okay, and then as far as the PowerPoint, I feel you did a great job of not being tied to the PowerPoint. I think you did a great job of that. And there's a balance with the PowerPoint being a tool that serves you and helps keep you on track enough. You know, because a workshop's going to be organic, and when you get people talking, who knows where they're going to take you? You know, gosh, at Maryland, you know, this coach is now under investigation. You know, whatever they take you, you know, that's going to happen when you invite interaction. So one of the things the PowerPoint does is it helps keep bringing you back, and like you said, keep you moving forward in an organized enough way.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I did yesterday, just in thinking about just what you said, was the PowerPoint was kind of my crutch. So even if I didn't know what was coming up next, I could still refer to it and be like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Rather than like with the e-tank is to know, okay, this is 7 slides. I can get through them pretty quick. I can move forward in this one, but I can get to the buddy system. I can get to the winner circle, which is what I really want to talk about with this group, maybe in particular, and have. I think I need a little better knowledge of what the PowerPoint is coming up, not just with the next slide, but maybe like the next 5, and be able to maybe zip through, okay, I don't need that one, don't need that one, okay, I get to this one. And if it's really important, like if they bring up something like with either the buddy system or charting, like I said about charting too, we're gonna, note, effort, effort goals, effort things that they do in the winner circle. I think that's just for me to be able to have a better grasp of, okay, that slide is now 6 away, and I can get to my story 6 slides from now, rather than trying to jam it in, at this moment. Even though it's on my mind, I think that's what happens. Okay, this is on my mind right now, and I want to tell it because I'm going to forget it. But I think that slide right there will bring me back to it.
Yes.
And if you don't get to it, you don't get to it. But again, as I was talking, I knew, oh man, that gas tank has been up there for a good 8 or 9 minutes. I got to get out of that. I got to move on. We got to get this. We got to get this rolling. So.
And you did. It's not like you were stuck in one place on that slide, because you were moving forward with the dialogue. And then when you did click forward, I feel like you caught yourself up. And I think you did a pretty good job. What I've seen some trainers do is they get ahead of themselves and then they click forward and what they've just said comes up. And so they end up repeating it. I think you did a good job of not doing that. We see what's there. We see less coachable, more coachable. So Kelly, just a couple things, and I'll turn it over to you. I thought the strongest part of this demonstration, Christian, was when I was a young coach at Penn State. The story, that personal story. Okay, right. You were vulnerable. You were pointing out how you've evolved as a coach. I thought that was you came to life, and I felt like, okay, now I'm hearing from Christian. I'm not hearing from the script on the PowerPoint or whatever Jim Thompson wrote in his book, which is good stuff.
Yeah,
I like the script since I wrote it, but
right.
No, okay. Now I'm hearing from Coach Appleman, and I thought that was a good, solid story. I will say that it also, while it was the most powerful part, it was the transition point where I thought we started pretty interactive, and from the story on, I felt like your voice and your telling dominated after that. So that's just, something to look out for.
Yep.
So Christian, I was thinking, okay, so this is such a great story. How do I capitalize on this as a trainer, this great example? And this is what I came up with, is like, so you tell your story. When I was a young coach at Penn State, I used to stomp and do this and that. I want you to think about your own journey as a coach, from when you started coaching to where you are now. What direction have you personally moved in? Are you more positive? Are you more negative? Are you more demonstrative on the sidelines? Are you more composed? When I say go, turn to a partner, 1 minute, share with each other, go. So you see what I did there, Christian?
Mm-hmm.
Are you with me, Christian?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you're capitalizing on that personal experience, and then you're doing something, posing something that gets the group now to reflect and engage.
Right.
Because I do think, well, okay, and then just to take it a step further, Kelly, how am I doing on time? Not very well, huh?
You're
my time management. So then to take it a step further, Christian, then you could say, okay, let's come back together as a group. Who's willing to share with me what you and your partner? Someone says, yeah, well, I'm like you. When I was young, I used to be out of control, and now, and then I'd say, well, why? Mm-hmm. Why the change? And they're probably going to say what PCA would tell them, is that it's counterproductive. It didn't help their players. Right. They got what's it called, a hernia or whatever from stress, whatever they're going to say. Right. You're getting them to say things that create and demonstrate their buy-in. So anyway, my last thing, I think, Okay, so Christian, in the spirit of getting us to talk more, you asked a couple questions that we were ready to answer, and you didn't let us answer them. Okay, you know, so how can we fill emotional tanks? I was ready to answer, and then you said, I'll give you an example, and you kind of answered the question for us.
Right. Okay.
And then later you asked a great question. Later, the Mr. Rogers question. I was ready to answer that question when you said, what did Mr. Rogers, what are some famous Mr. Rogers quotes? You know what I was going to say when what popped into my head?
What's that?
Exactly what you said.
Really? Okay.
I like you just the way you are.
Gotcha.
I was going to say that, but you didn't, you figured that I didn't know. I didn't, you said, this is kind of hard, so I'm going to tell you. I don't know if it was what you were looking for or not, but it's what I was going to say if I had the chance. So,
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Keep
Sure.
that in mind. Yeah.
Sure.
All right, boy, that's
That's
a lot of feedback, and
That's
I know
really
it can
good.
be overwhelming, Christian.
No, that's really good. I appreciate it, and it really it helps, and I think that's a really good thing to do with coaches. Say, what when we talk about being demonstrative and all that, they can take the ball and run with that one too. You can say, hey, pair up. What is one thing that that you do maybe on the sidelines that you're going to try to do better this year?
I love that.
Based on what we've talked about, and they might.
I love that. It's a little break from your teaching, telling, and gets us engaged. And it doesn't have to be very long, but that break and that turn to a neighbor, or even if it's self-reflection. Okay, I want you to think one thing that what do you think is your nonverbal that you have to work on the most? Write it down on the inside cover of the book.
Yeah.
Anything that breaks it up, changes the channel, and keeps pulling us in, and takes us out of just sit back and listen mode.
Right.
I love that, Christian. I like what you're doing there.
Right. Good.
Kelly, I'm going to put myself on mute so that I can't talk. So I can't talk anymore.
You'll be nonverbal there in the background with yours.
Yeah, Ruben will be nonverbal. So, Christian, I saw tremendous improvement from yesterday. I saw a lot of things that we specifically talked about yesterday that you did. I wanted to hear more of your own stories. I wanted you to share a little bit more about your coaching experience. I didn't want you to be reading PowerPoint slides and locked into that, which I thought was great. I think just you weren't looking down at notes, which I think was much better. Yesterday you had the notes and you were looking back and forth the whole time, and you didn't do that here. So I think all of that was fantastic. I think that a lot of the things that Ruben said, but I think it was good that Ruben, I don't know if did you get a chance to watch Christian's yesterday? So he was coming in fresh, not having seen you yesterday to see what the improvements were. And he still had another section for you to work on. So in terms of facilitating an excellent workshop, because we're putting you out there to facilitate excellence. Even coaches in the room don't care that you're new, and the partner doesn't care. They're paying the same amount whether they get a trainer that's been there for 30, 20 years or a trainer that's brand new. Yep. So we have a bar set very high, and there's a lot of different pieces involved. So you've come a long way since yesterday, but as you can hear from Ruben, and I agree with all the things that he said, there's and the fact that you're doing a workshop next week, actually, I think is sort of unfair to you. Because I think that there's a lot of growth potential, and I don't want to send trainers into a situation where you don't feel completely 100% equipped and ready to go. So even though I know that you're assigned to do this workshop next week, I would love you to also watch the other trainer do. I mean, I know you're going to watch Dave do an athlete workshop, but I'd love to have you watch Dave do part of the coach workshop, so that the responsibility is not 100% on you, because we don't get many opportunities as trainers to watch other workshops. So if you have an opportunity to observe another trainer do part of it, I'd feel more comfortable with you doing that, because you can just learn timing and nuances and questions, and just seeing how often a trainer engages the coaches and how they do it is so, even for me, I mean, I love to go out and watch other trainers, and I pick stuff up all the time. And then I've been doing it for 9 years now. So my other question for you is this. Who is the most important person at these workshops?
The coaches.
The
Well,
coaches.
Yeah, coaches, right.
All the coaches in the room, exactly. So what did you do throughout that, even that half an hour demo, to show me, the coach, that I'm the most important person in the room?
I mean, I guess if you ask them questions, you want their feedback so that you show them that we're on the level. It's not a, it's not a talk down. It's not a lecture. It's more of it's the workshop. It's interaction.
Right. So just, even though you just had 2 of us in the room, how much did you find out about where Ruben and I are at with emotional tank filling on our team? And how do I fill the emotional tanks of these guys that I coach, my 11 and 12-year-olds? What do I do to fill their emotional tanks? And how do I see if their emotional tanks are full? And
Right.
what can I do? How much did you find out about that?
Nothing. We didn't get that far because it was more of a talk and it was less of, hey, what are you guys going to do now? Type thing. So.
Right. What about if you found out about that in the very beginning? Don't you think that might help a little bit to kind of determine the way that you're going to steer it? Yeah.
Sure.
So
Sure.
you have a blessing and a curse. And the blessing is that you have so much coaching experience. I mean, there are very few that have coached at the level you coach, at the D1 level, in different sports. I mean, that's just like, it blows my mind that you could coach Division I basketball at Penn State and tennis at Yale. I mean, nobody does that. So you have so much credibility and you have so much to share with us. And I think just you talking is going to make people listen, because they're going to be like, wait, this guy is serious about, different sports, different areas, the sports that you play. Not many people play 3 Division I sports. I can say I played 3 Division I sports, but not at Penn State. I mean, that's crazy. So you can use that as a huge asset to you, which I don't have. Ruben does have a lot more than I do in terms of that, but you have that as an asset. But the problem is that sometimes when you have so much experience and so much to share, that you forget that the workshops are about the coaches in the room that are coaching, as you said, 4th grade girls.
Yeah.
Because they want to be able to take your knowledge and your stories and relate it to their 4th grade girls. So the only way they can do that is with really simple, as Ruben said, less is more, simple tools. Okay, so what you just said in those 30 minutes, not even getting to the tools, I remember that I should really videotape myself on the sidelines. That's something I got out of that, because I thought, I agree with Ruben, that was an awesome story. And if I was a coach, I'd be like, man, I wonder what I look like on the sidelines, because that was impactful. It was a story. It was emotional. I loved that.
But see, there you reflect, and the other ones you're not reflecting. You're just kind of listening, like, okay, I'm being lectured to here a little bit. This is more of a sermon, as opposed to, oh, I can think about that now, and how does that affect me? And I got you.
Yep.
I got you.
I think Mr. Rogers' neighborhood story was good. I don't know that it was one of the best analogies, because I think you did get into more of a loving me just the way I am, forgiving mistakes. So I might push that off to Elm Tree of Mastery, because I don't know that necessarily has to do with emotional tank filling. I mean, he said, will you be my neighbor? That's part of it, but that's inclusiveness. But I think I would probably wait to wait, you love me no matter what. That should be more of mastery. So I might push that one off. I thought that was great too. But I also think that, when you're talking about filling tanks and draining tanks, and you use that exercise with the basketball, the shot and draining and filling tanks, I use that at every single workshop, but I probably take about half the time, because I don't explain it. I let the activity explain itself. So if a room of coaches is told to drain someone's tank, they just did it. And what slide is up at the same time after you do that activity? The slide that just magically appears behind you is the one that says what drains the tank and what fills the tank. And I just put that slide up and say, wow, did you hear any of those happening? Did you see any sarcasm? I don't go down the bullet list. I just say, how many of those did we hit? Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And filling the tank. Let's fill the tank. How hard was that? Yeah, a little bit harder. Which ones did you hear of that? And then, you kind of break it down that way. I'm not reading the slide, but as Ruben said, I'm using the slide to give structure, give a visual. There's a lot of people that are just visual learners, and they tune out when it's just talk, and they need to see something on the slide to keep their brains in order. So using the slides as a guide is important. Now, the other thing, the receivable feedback scenario. Why do we put scenarios in our workshops? Every single principal has a scenario. It has kind of the theory, and then it has a scenario. Why do we do that?
Feedback. So they can think about it and then tell you what it's good, bad, ugly, otherwise.
Right. So this is built-in interaction. Built in. This is where you don't even, it's a no-brainer. You have a scenario up there. You partner them either with a partner, with a group of 3, group of 4. I like to get them together with people that are coaching the same age group of kids that they coach from different sports, you know, depending on what the room is. But you have an opportunity to get them an anticipatory set of how will I handle this before Christian tells me how I should handle it. Here's where it is. So this is built-in interaction. So there's nothing worse than when you have built-in interaction and you're giving.
Right.
So I mean, you're asking them as a double goal coach, how can you give them the feedback they need to improve without discouraging them? It's a flat out question. And if you don't give us a chance to answer, who's the most important person in the room?
Coaches are. I mean, I'm sorry. What was the question?
The trainer becomes the most important.
Oh, the trainer. I see. Oh, yeah. Right. Okay. Gotcha.
You didn't give me a chance to answer. Ruben said there were 2 times that you didn't give him a chance to answer and he had something to share. So this is now 3 times that we, the coaches, have had something to share and you didn't give us that opportunity to share. So now who's the most important person in the room?
Me. Right.
You. Right. So the workshop becomes about Christian Appleman, not about helping me as coaches. So it's part of it. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
This is how I feel. I'm a random coach from Guilford Basketball Association, and I'm sitting at the workshop going, I don't know that he's caring about me. I don't know that he's out here to help me. I think he's out here to just tell me everything that he did well. And even though that's not the case, because I know that your heart is in the right place for this, that's what coaches can misconstrue, that it's not really about me. And that's when they'll be on their phones. That's when they'll be texting. That's when they'll be scrolling through social media. If you don't engage the coaches at least every 3 to 4 minutes, I would say, unless your story is like mind-blowing. If you have a 5-minute long mind-blowing story, which most of us, we don't want you to have. Those stories. Coaches' heads will be down, their eyes will be down, and they will be on their phone scrolling through their Facebook feed within about 3 minutes. So you've got to keep them knowing that it's about them. What are your concerns? What kind of kids do you have? How do you handle this? What do you do in this situation? And guess what? We've built in genius tools. You don't have to think of them, Christian. They're already here. Right. So like when you brought in the criticism sandwich 3 slides ahead, we've done the work for you. We've given it a structure and a system. Just go with the system, but dress it up with your experience. But it's really about us. And the cool thing is you'll hear a lot of great stories from coaches in the room that are better than stories that you have. And if that's the case, then you just sit back and go, wow, that was awesome. Yep. Coach will ask me a question and I put the question out to the group first.
Right. Sure.
So part of it's selfish going, I don't really know how I'm going to answer that right now. The other part of it is saying, let's see if we can tap into the knowledge of the room. Because I don't live in the area all the time. You do for this workshop, but I don't work with these coaches. I don't know these kids. I don't know these parents. So if they have a question about something, I'll put it out to the group first. And then you can add to it and say, in addition to that, here are some other tips that PCA has for you. So I just think, I think that pretty much hit most of the comments. I was cracking up when you said the elevator. Did you make up that word, Christian?
That is I wish I did. That's a Jim Thompson special.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say
from 2 podcasts that I had that I listened to of him. He said, and he almost said it verbatim, like in both. His answer was, you can be an elevator, not an elevator that goes up and down, but an elevator ER. And that's how we do it. And you're a noticer. And I mean, it was so spot on. And like you said before, like I'm going to steal that. Like that is really good.
No, exactly. JT has a lot of great quotes, and that's a good one. Absolutely.
Christian,
but that didn't fit either. That really did. I mean, it fit okay, but the elevator is more toward Elm Tree. Like I mean, I guess it was a tank filler. I was going back and forth as to what I want to put where, and and like even little. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to put it here, but you could also use it other places. But I think to refer to it again, it's almost like when you say, better athletes, better people. You keep coming back to that phrase. You can keep coming back to elevator in a bunch of different,
Christian, Christian, I'd like to try to answer that question. I think if you're going to use elevator in this workshop, I do think it fits best in emotional tank.
Okay.
I do. On the other hand, become a noticer, be a noticer of effort, I think fits better in Elm.
Yeah.
And you had both of those in this section. It was, like you said, cramming everything in.
Right.
Hey, Kelly, I know I'm breaking your train of thought. I do want to commend Christian on, okay, your coaching career and all you've accomplished and just that knowledge base, experience base you have, you combine it. I mean, you elevator, noticer of it. I mean, you combine it with clearly a lot of knowledge on PCA stuff. Mm-hmm. You got both, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I live it every day, so it's kind of, I've kind of embraced all these things and tried to make, how do we make our team better? How do we have this culture? How do we make it so that we have goals and short-term, long-term goals, and elevating each other? It's what we do every day, all the time. So I'm kind of living it. It's not, I'm not a banker during the day and doing this kind of on the side. This is, it's what I do. So it's.
I have one other tip for you, and it's actually a tip someone gave to me, and it's actually really changed the entire workshop that I do. Mm-hmm. Joe Tarasi, who was on yesterday, said one thing that he always tells people is that we are coaching coaches, and we are inspiring coaches to leave our workshop and run out the door so that they cannot wait to hit the field and try out some of these things with their athletes the next day or that night. And in order to do that, we have to leave them wanting to do that. So if you tell them every single detail that every single bit of information that they need to have, and you tell them how to do it, what to do, they're not going to be seekers of more knowledge. Right. So we are sending them home with a couple tools, a couple things they'll use, a couple like wows, nuggets, inspiration, but we don't need to tell them everything, because hopefully their organization is going to have a follow-up workshop and another follow-up workshop. They also have the dev zone. You're also sending them home with a book. Yep. And you're also going to be sending them the weekly talking points email for the next 10 weeks. So if you have told them everything to exhaustion, they're going to have no desire to open those emails. They're not going to look in the book. Right. So think of this super brief workshop, this 90-minute workshop, as a teaser. It's an appetizer. It's going to make them want more, make them want to be better. Yep. And if we tell them too much, they're going to be like, it's information overload. They're going to glaze over and they're going to say, you know what? I'm done. I can't even remember anything you said. Little pieces of information that spark, wow, that's awesome. Let me try that. Okay. You've got this tool, criticism sandwich. How would you use it with your team? How would you use it with your players? I've used it with this. How would you use it with that? So again, taking these tools, introducing them, sprinkling them in, and letting the coaches wrap their mind around how they would possibly use it, practice it in a workshop, and then keep moving. Yeah. Because I do not think that every single coach is going to be as excited about the buddy system and the winner circle as you are. I hope they would be, but they might not be. What might get them excited is Elm Tree of Mastery. What might get them even more excited is honoring the game. So we have to just be careful that, I mean, I have certain things I love I'm a huge positive charting fan. I could go off for 20-minute workshop on positive charting, but not every coach would. Right. So I've got to remember that what I give all my value to, Ruben might not care about that. It might not apply to his team. His, squash players might not really get into positive charting. So you've just got to remember that you're speaking to the gamut of coaches, the whole group, and we want to keep every one of them interested for the full 90 minutes.
Got it. That's perfect. Yeah, great. Awesome.
So I'm done. I'm not giving you any more.
So Kelly's done. So, hey, Christian, I want to commend you on your attempt here to soak all this feedback in and your attitude about it. I mean, I think it can be overwhelming. I appreciate your attitude about it. I also noticed something during this little debrief that several times you laughed, and I think that that part of you, I'm confident that as you get into the trainer role, that your workshop participants will see that in you too. There's going to be times when you're laughing with us or laughing at yourself, In trainer candidates, the first time I often see that side of them is when they're not in trainer mode. Kelly, you know what I mean by that? You know, they're in trainer mode, and then we see and then demo's over, and they're laughing, they're smiling, and you know. So and then you mentioned, Christian, your journey as a coach, part of your journey with your Penn State story. I want to share with you a little bit of my journey as a PCA trainer.
Yep.
Because I was a real project for PCA. I was a project. I did not come out of the blocks very quickly as a PCA trainer. But over time, and it's been many years for me, I have become a good trainer. And I think the two main differences for me from when I started are these two ideas, and I'm gonna make it suspenseful. I see you leaning forward to get these two.
I can't wait.
I'm going to make it suspenseful because I actually think that in our feedback to you, well, no, we do some of it. But you know, we give you all this feedback, right? And so how do you absorb it all? What do you do with all this feedback? So I think it's helpful to, okay, we talked in detail about a lot of stuff. Now let's really try to boil it down to a couple of things. And with that in mind, the two things that I think I do most differently now are the two things that I would say summarize our conversation with you today. One of them is less is more. Okay. You know, a lot of what we talked about can fall into that bucket. Less is more. I think I'm much better about that now than I was 20 years ago. And the other one is ask rather than tell. I do a lot less talking now. I do a lot more asking, and I do a lot more listening, and I do a lot more stepping back and getting out of the way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helps. So much feedback, right, we give in these sessions.
Well, it's actually exactly the same thing we do with our tennis team. You know, we say to them, less is more. And when we coach them, we're not trying to say, okay, you got to get your forehand better, your backhand better, your volley better, your serve. You know, it's like, okay, we're going to slow down. We're just going to work on one thing here. We're going to make sure that that's okay. And then we're going to ask you your feedback in terms of, okay, how does that feel? Is that uncomfortable? Is that, you know, so it's a very, you're interacting with them, and you're not telling them, hey, you have to hit it this way, and this is how, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 step process. Okay, do it. It's totally the opposite. It's okay, hit some balls, and I'm not going to say anything. Just do it, and then we're going to work on it. So it's exactly what you're, you know, and before we say anything, we wait maybe like 5 seconds. Like we don't say, oh, that was wrong. It's like, you know, you wait and you say, okay, how about try it this way? You know, so it's very interactive, but it's also at a slower pace. So I think I can incorporate a lot of what I already do into this. In fact, I was just thinking through it, like every slide could be a discussion. I don't have to say anything. I mean, you go slide by slide by slide and say, hey, tell me about this. What would you guys do? Hey, tell me about that. What would you guys do?
Could be.
Hey, what about this? What about that? Hey, what if you have a player that doesn't want to show up for practice? What are you going to do with a kid that's a real problem? What are you going to do with the kid that doesn't want to be there? And just make it that way. I mean, you could. I mean, it's not. I'm just saying that you could do it that way too, to make it totally, you know, interactive in that way. We don't even need an expert. You could just facilitate a conversation. Just say, hey, you guys talk about it.
Well, the thing is, we call them workshop facilitators. We don't call you a teacher. We don't call you a presenter. We call you a facilitator because you are a facilitator of conversations. And just what you said, you're coaching coaches. You're not teaching coaches. You're not lecturing to coaches. You're not a clinician. You're not teaching them how to swing a bat or swing a tennis racket. You're coaching coaches on how to coach. So doing exactly the way you coach your tennis players. See what they do. Sit back, watch, listen, add a couple suggestions here and there.
Yep.
Listen. Question. Okay, now try your serve. Let's take a look at this and see how this looks. Sit back, listen, see how it goes. You know, and that's exactly what you're doing to these coaches. Ask a question. What do you do? Okay, try this out. Now, you've got to mix that in. Certain slides are ask questions. Certain slides are I'll tell you a story. Certain slides are get up and move around and yell at somebody and do this. So as long as there's kind of, think of it as like a symphony where there's a crescendo and then there's a quiet part and then there's an active part and then there's a sit part. You know, it's going to keep flowing, ebbing and flowing. And those are the components of a fantastic workshop. It's not all the same. It keeps the coaches engaged because your goal is to keep the coaches engaged and motivate them to go out and coach better. It's not about information sharing. It really isn't. And I think that's where we actually have to reinvent the wheel because so many trainers that are ready to just do a lecture, do a clinic, share all this. We're not just information sharing. The information, we're information gathering. We want the coaches to want to gather the information.
Yep.
And I just realized
right now, like I'm ready to do another presentation. Like
hey, let me know because I still would love you to do one more. I mean, I like all the people to do 3 before I send them out. And you already have your date to be sent out, but I'd love you to do one more. I want to see you capitalize on this.
Okay.
I also realized sitting here that the 2 sports I never played as a kid or a collegiate are volleyball and tennis, and those are the 2 sports I'm playing now as an adult. So between
that's awesome. That's great.
I could have some pretty good coaching right now from the Yale tennis coach and former Stanford volleyball coach. I could get my 40-year-old games much better if I just hung out with you 2 guys longer.
I'll tell you what you do. When you play, less is more.
Yeah.
Like do less. Like don't try to do too much. Don't hit the ball hard. Do less and take your time, breathe, and it'll be just fine. It'll be great.
Yeah. I'm getting there. Apparently what I've heard from my coaches, and my coach was actually the tennis assistant coach at James Madison University back in the 70s, but she tells me all the time that you're lucky you're athletic. You're 5'9".
That's right.
5'9" and you're athletic. So you're playing in over 40 women's tennis league. You have an advantage over all of them, even if you don't know how to play tennis. That's pretty funny.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've developed my growth mindset. I'll tell you that much.
There you go. Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, Christian, the only day that I'm not going to be available this week is Friday. But if you, and I have a couple workshops I'm doing, but if you want between, today and tomorrow and Thursday, if you have a time that works and you want, or you can just, do it with Ruben, do it with Joe. I mean, whatever. I think the more people that can get eyes on you before you go out.
When's the first workshop where Christian's scheduled to facilitate? It's
Tuesday, right?
I have one on Tuesday afternoon that I'm helping with in the afternoon. Monday, I have camp. We have the professional tennis tournaments here. The WTA Connecticut Open event is here. This week. So I have to kind of be on call the next 2 days, and then Friday you're out. But maybe Monday. Could we set up something for Monday? Is that possible? Can I email you tonight and let you know what a good time might be, and maybe go from there?
Yeah. Monday works for me. Monday afternoon is better than morning.
Okay.
For me, anytime in the afternoon on Monday. The later the better.
The earlier the better.
I said, anytime. I have something at 5, but anytime like later afternoon, like 3, 2, 3, 4, something like that, better for me.
I'll check my schedule and then I'll let you know. That'd be great.
Okay, great.
Christian, thanks also for the setup that you did there for your rehearsal with the actual monitor and.
Oh, good. Yeah, this worked.
That's
worked out really well. And you know what it is? It's good practice for me too, because then I can. Yeah.
More realistic.
Yeah, and I can also see. Okay, I really don't need this. I mean, I do, but I don't. Yeah. Different than yesterday, where I thought, "Oh man, I'm just attached at the hip here with the things." But I think it's part of just that comfort level of, okay, this is how it's going to be. Let's do it, and it's like a shoot around or a pre-practice. This is it just helps the more realistic it is. So it's good. Great.
So Ruben, Christian is observing Dave Allen do a tick workshop in the morning on Tuesday. And then he is co-facilitating the Double Goal Coach 1 workshop with Dave in the afternoon, I believe, on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday is the athlete workshop with Abby.
Yeah. Got it.
That's his. So it's coming up fast.
Yeah. We're pushing him.
So